Okay, so let's dive in. Picture this courtroom scene. It's packed, really tense. You've got Judge Walter Grayson up front looking, well, maybe a bit over it all.
Seen it all before, right? That kind of vibe.
Exactly. And then there's the prosecutor, Mitchell Carrington. He's practically buzzing with confidence. Seems like he thinks this case is already won.
Yeah, like it's just a formality.
And at the defense table, a 19-year-old, Jalen Dawson, facing charges for grand theft auto and resisting arrest. We're in the Los Angeles County Courthouse, and honestly, everyone's expecting this to wrap up fast.
It sets up this immediate expectation. Young defendant, serious charges. The system kind of knows how this usually goes, or thinks it does.
But here's where it gets really interesting, the twist nobody saw coming. Jalen,
No.
he's not your average 19-year-old. Forget sports stats. This kid apparently spent his time learning about case law.
That's the key, isn't it? His background. His mom, Denise Dawson, was a paralegal for like 2 decades.
Yeah, exactly. So Jalen grew up hearing about the legal world, not just stories, but the real nitty-gritty, procedures, tactics, even where the system might, cut corners.
It's like he had this ongoing real-world masterclass. Not stuff you learn from books, but from listening, observing how it actually works on the ground, years of it.
And that unique upbringing is what we're digging into today. We're working from this account, Courtroom Prodigy, Jalen's defense. So our mission here is to unpack how Jalen, representing himself, just dismantled the prosecution's case step by step.
Highlighting the specific details he used, right?
Okay.
And what we can maybe learn from his whole approach to, well, to questioning the narrative he was handed.
Exactly. We'll follow his moves, see how he flipped the script when everything seems stacked against him.
Okay, let's get into it. The prosecution starts. Carrington.
Right. Carrington lays out his case, polished, super confident. He presents what looks like, well, pretty damning evidence.
What did they have? The stolen car, obviously. An Audi A6, right?
Yeah, 2022 Audi A6. There was a chase. Jalen was picked up nearby. His fingerprints were on the steering wheel. And they had testimony from Officer Daniel Ruiz.
So, on paper, it looks solid. Stolen vehicle, pursuit, physical evidence linking Jalen to the car, and an officer testifying he saw him in it. Seems pretty clear-cut.
Totally. Like dominoes all lined up. It felt like that to everyone in the room.
Yeah.
Even Jalen's own public defender, Lisa Thornton, seemed, well, maybe resigned. Her presence was minimal.
The whole atmosphere was just routine, processing another case.
Until the moment. Judge Grayson looks to the defense, expecting Thornton. But Jalen, he quietly puts a hand on her arm, says something, and then steps up himself.
And says,
I'll be representing myself, Your Honor.
whoa, okay, that must have sent a shockwave through the room.
Oh, yeah. Instant silence. The judge actually asks him to repeat himself, like he can't believe it.
And Carrington, the prosecutor.
He smirks. Lets out this short, kind of dismissive laugh, says something like, this should be interesting. Completely underestimating him.
Famous last words, maybe, because Jalen didn't waste any time.
Not at all. His first move was brilliant, tactically. He went straight for Officer Ruiz's testimony.
The core of their witness evidence.
Right. Specifically, the part where Ruiz claims in the report that he personally saw Jalen driving the car before the arrest. Jalen makes sure everyone hears that claim clearly.
Locking it down. Establishing what the prosecution is stating as fact.
Then, boom, Jalen moves to dismiss Ruiz's testimony completely.
On what grounds?
He argues Ruiz couldn't possibly have seen him driving because, get this, Ruiz wasn't even on duty when the car chase started.
Seriously, not just denying it, but presenting a factual impossibility based on duty logs.
Exactly. And he doesn't just say it. He makes a strategic request. He asks the judge to verify Officer Ruiz's patrol car GPS logs for that specific night.
Oh, that's smart. Calling their bluff with their own data.
He basically says, check the logs. If the report's true, they'll show him there. If I'm right, they'll show he wasn't.
That's a critical move. Using independent, verifiable data to challenge sworn testimony. That takes guts and knowledge.
And Carrington's reaction. Apparently very telling. He looked uncomfortable, cleared his throat, started arguing you can't just take a defendant's word over an officer's.
Standard defense tactic from the prosecution, maybe. But the GPS logs.
That was the key. When Judge Grayson flat out asked Carrington if he objected to checking the GPS logs, he hesitated.
The hesitation, that pause. You know everyone noticed that.
The source says it was palpable. The confident prosecutor suddenly unsure. That's when the whole feeling in the room changed.
No more laughing, I bet.
Definitely not. Just tension. Jalen let that silence hang there. He knew what that hesitation meant.
It signals weakness, right. When the other side flinches like that on a factual check, you know you've hit something.
Carrington tries to recover. He pivots hard back to the other big piece of evidence, fingerprints.
Jalen's prints on the steering wheel of the stolen Audi, that still seems pretty strong.
It does. And Carrington hammers that point home. Irrefutable proof, right? Jalen was in the car.
How did Jalen handle that? Did he deny the prints were his?
No, and this is interesting too. He calmly says that's true. He acknowledges the physical evidence.
Okay, interesting strategy. Doesn't fight the fact, fights the interpretation.
Exactly. He doesn't get defensive. Instead, he turns to the jury and uses this really relatable analogy.
Like what?
Like trying on a jacket in a store. You touch it, maybe leave fingerprints, but that doesn't automatically mean you stole it, right?
Ah, okay. Humanizing it.
Yeah.
Taking the technical evidence and putting it into an everyday, innocent context. That's clever.
And then he connects it directly. He says the Audi was parked outside a 7-Eleven earlier that day, unlocked. He and his friends walked by. He admits he leaned on it, even opened the door, just out of curiosity. Left the prints of them, hours before the theft.
Providing a plausible, non-criminal explanation for the fingerprints. One that fits the analogy he just gave them.
Then he looks right at the jury, the whole courtroom, really, and asks this powerful question. Does touching something make you a criminal?
Directly challenging the assumption. Forcing them to think beyond just prints guilty.
But he wasn't finished with the fingerprint evidence yet. He shifted to the process. He asks the judge, was the forensic specialist who analyzed these prints actually subpoenaed to testify?
Ooh, procedural point. And the answer...
Carrington had to admit, no, they weren't.
And Jalen pounces on that, I assume.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Points out that with no specialist present, there's no chance for cross-examination, no way to ask about how the prints were collected or handled the chain of custody, no way to challenge the accuracy of the analysis itself.
He's showing that even the hard evidence wasn't presented with full rigor, undermining its weight without denying its existence. The judge must have been seeing the case weaken significantly by now.
The source says he looked weary, rubbing his temples, like he realized this open and shut case was anything but.
Carrington's foundation was just crumbling away.
And then Jalen delivered the final blow. He announces he has one more piece of evidence, an official statement, from the actual owner of the stolen Audi, Mr. Raymond Whitaker.
The victim statement. Why wouldn't the prosecution have introduced that?
Exactly Jalen's point. He highlights that the prosecution didn't submit it and strongly implies he knows why they didn't.
Okay, setting it up. What did the statement say?
Jalen reads the key part, directly from the original police report filed by Whitaker. I left my car running. It wasn't the guy you arrested. I saw the kid, and he was white.
Wow. Wow, that changes everything. The actual owner saw the thief, and it wasn't Jalen, and he was white.
You can imagine the reaction, a gasp in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Carrington apparently looked like he'd been punched.
Absolutely devastating to the prosecution's case.
Jalen then connects all the dots for them. He points out the arresting officer knew about this statement. The prosecution had this statement. They chose to ignore it completely. Yet they stood there arguing Jalen was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Exposing a deliberate omission. That's not just a mistake, that suggests.
Well, it suggests they were building a case they knew had a massive hole in it.
It's that critical insight again. Always look for what's not being presented, what's missing from the story. Jalen found it, and it blew the case wide open.
And he also clarified where he was arrested, right? Wasn't it far from the car?
Yeah, blocks away from where the Audi was abandoned. Just walking home, he said. Not running, not hiding, not near the car at all.
Which contradicts the implication that he was caught fleeing the scene.
So Jalen lays it out. Blunt force. This case, he says, wasn't built on facts. It was built on bad police work and assumptions, on officers seeing, quote, a black kid in the same general area and deciding that was close enough.
He called out the potential bias directly. That takes incredible courage in that setting.
The tension in the room must have been immense. Everyone just knew.
What did the judge do?
Judge Grayson took a long breath, looked from Jalen to Carrington to the jury, asked Carrington if the prosecution had anything else.
And Carrington. What could he say? Flushed, stiff, just no, Your Honor.
So Judge Grayson looks back at Jalen.
A long moment. Then he delivers the words, case dismissed.
Just like that. Dismiss.
Chaos erupts, right? Reporters rushing, people buzzing. But the source describes Jalen just standing there for a beat, kind of letting it sink in.
Must have been surreal.
And as Jalen's getting ready to leave, Judge Grayson catches his eye. The look on the judge's face is totally different now. Respect, maybe astonishment. And he tells Jalen, "You should consider law school."
I bet. What did Jalen do?
Just gave a little smirk and turned to go. Outside, his mom rushes up, huge relief on her face, but also apparently gives him grief for scaring her like that, calls him stubborn.
Sounds about right. A mother's reaction.
And the source gives us this final image. Judge Grayson, watching Jalen and his mom from across the street, no longer bored or dismissive,
Yeah.
just thoughtful, reflective.
He knew he'd seen something extraordinary. Jalen, using his unique understanding, basically forced the system to confront itself, didn't he? And the system blinked.
That's exactly how the source puts it. Made the system look at itself. And it blinked first. Which leads us to the bigger picture, the question the source itself poses.
How many other cases are out there like this? With similar flaws, shortcuts, maybe biases? What about people who don't have Jalen's background, his knowledge, his sheer nerve to fight back like that?
It makes you wonder. His win is incredible, but it also shines a light on potential systemic problems that usually stay hidden.
So wrapping this up, what are the big takeaways from this deep dive? We saw this young guy, Jalen, use knowledge gained in a really unconventional way
Yeah, years of just listening and absorbing.
to deploy these really specific, effective tactics. He didn't just deny things, he dismantled the case piece by piece.
He showed the power of demanding actual data, like those GPS logs. He used that simple analogy to reframe the fingerprint evidence. And critically, he exposed the importance of evidence that was deliberately left out the owner's statement.
That omission was key.
And this story, it's more than just, one amazing trial. It really pushes you to think about assumptions. Assumptions made in the legal system, sure, but really in any complex system, in your job, news you read.
How information gets presented, or maybe what gets left out. The importance of questioning the narratives we're given, especially when the stakes are high.
It highlights how systems built on rules are still run by people. People with pressures, deadlines, and, maybe biases. Jalen didn't just get acquitted, he forced everyone to see how those human factors could skew things.
So true. Even with rules and facts, the human element is always there.
Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. We rely on systems like the justice system to be objective, right? But how often do you think are outcomes shaped less by proven facts and more by accepted stories, maybe procedural shortcuts, or those implicit biases Jalen pointed to?
And if that's happening, even sometimes, what responsibility do we have? As people who try to stay informed, what's our role in understanding how these systems really work and maybe in questioning narratives that just don't seem to add up?